Fletcher, Chief Growth Officer at Cypress North. We're a digital agency in Buffalo, New York, and you're listening to the Agency Scoop. Each episode, I'll tackle a specific topic from an agency point of view. We're going to talk about what's helping us grow, challenges that we face, how we're working with our clients, and even things that bring us joy. Welcome to this month's episode of the Agency Scoop. So today, as always, I'm going to do an intro segment where I talk about something that we're working through here at Cypress North. And I have a great Q&A with Tricia Barrett from Crowley Webb and Associates. And then I'm adding on a new segment at the end of our show called Agency Horror Stories. So stay tuned till the end for that. That'll be an ongoing segment. So first of all, the first thing that I wanted to talk about today was hiring challenges. I know I've talked about this on the podcast before, but it seems like everyone I talk to these days, whether we are talking to a client for new business or talking to other agency people, talking to other companies, everyone is having problems with hiring these days amid the Great Resignation. And so I've been reading a lot of newsletters, a lot of HR websites, talking to people about what they're doing to combat that. And a lot of people have had some really interesting discussions with me about it. So I wanted to just talk about a few things that I've heard about there and see what other people are doing, open this up for you to contact me and tell me what you're doing and if it's working or not. And I'd love to make this a group discussion. So some of the things I've heard of companies doing, the first thing is referral bonuses. So I've heard of companies offering their own employees anywhere from $500 to $5,000 or even more of referral bonuses if they refer a friend or past coworker to come work for them. And it seems like it's pretty successful. They usually base it on whether the employee has made it 6 months or a year. They put a timeline on it so that the person recommending them doesn't just get it the second they accept a job. They have to actually work out there for a little bit. So that's really interesting. I've also heard about people doing sign-on bonuses just for accepting the job, no strings attached, without a time limit or anything, which is a little nerve-wracking because you're not sure if people are just collecting that money and then going there on their own way and you lose out as a company. Another thing that I've heard people doing is guaranteed year-end bonuses. So if they make it through to the end of the year, providing a monetary benefit that way. That's really interesting to me because I think it makes sure that they check out and that they make it that far. There's also a lot of creative benefits that people are offering. So I've seen, flexible hybrid models where people are working from home. As we all know, that's a thing right now that a lot of people want to work from home or work in the office only part-time. There's a lot of PTO being offered, more PTO time than ever before. And then some other creative benefits like student loan debt planning relief or helping pay for graduate school or other certificates. Another thing that is happening here locally with M&T Bank, which is a huge bank in our region, they are building a tech center and they're training people for no cost at all. They're training people how to code and how to do different things just with the hope that they'll come and work for M&T after they're trained up and given that experience, which is really interesting and a great opportunity for our community, not just for the bank, but for the rest of the community as well. There's other people that are hiring people with no experience and training them on the job and just, hiring them based on cultural fit, which is important to everyone. And one of the things that I've been struggling with too is how to show people our culture in the office. So a lot of people right now are remote and they are working for a company that maybe they don't love, but they're like, I never want to go back in an office again because they didn't have a great experience before. So struggling to show candidates and show people our culture in the office and how we work together is really important, I think, with getting someone on board with that. So there's a lot of different things going on, a lot of different ideas. And, I'd love to hear from all of our listeners with how you're tackling that, what things you've done differently in the last year to bring people on or make it more attractive for people to work with you that aren't necessarily just monetary based, what creative things you've come up with. So I have an exciting guest this month. I had a ton of fun talking to Tricia Barrett, who is the Chief Operating Officer at Crowley Webb, and she leads their agency's patient recruitment and healthcare division, Praxis. Tricia is born in Buffalo, and she's a huge Buffalo booster. She's really active in our community. She's the vice chair of the Hopton Woodward Medical Research Institute Board of Directors, and she's the immediate past chair of Leadership Buffalo, which is a really great organization here in Western New York. So Tricia and I talk about all of the different things that Crowley has done to diversify and grow away from just being a traditional creative agency into a lot of different paths and how that's affected them. She's been there all along the way for almost 20 years. And so she has a lot of great insights and lessons for us to learn from what she has been through with Crowley and what Crowley has grown through. So here it is with Tricia Barrett. So Tricia, thank you so much for coming on the Agency Scoop. I'm so glad to have you here. Tell us a little bit about you and your background.
Well, I'm really excited to be here, so thanks for the invite. My name's Tricia Barrett. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Crowley Webb. Crowley Webb is a full-service communications agency headquartered here in Buffalo. We've been around for 35 years, and I've been with the agency since 2003. So I have a project management background, client service, sort of moved into operations, and now oversee Crowley Webb's just general agency operations, as well as Praxis, which is our patient recruitment and healthcare division.
Okay, well, tell us a little bit about Praxis and how that's evolved the agency and where it came from.
It's sort of a crazy story. So Praxis was a startup company in 2002. It was formed by 3 people who left a pharmaceutical company and decided to start their own patient recruitment company, recognizing a need to help recruit patients into clinical trials. So they saw an ad that Crowley Webb had done for Independent Health that won an award in a medical marketing magazine. And they called and asked if we were accepting new clients. And that just doesn't happen.
No.
You don't get phone calls saying, are you accepting new clients? And we said, well, yes, we are. So we pitched and we won that business. They were headquartered in Nashville, Tennessee. And so we were their marketing partner, and we did all of the strategy, creative, media, research, production. But then they had their own sales team. They had their own project management team. So we really were behind this glass curtain, if you will, and didn't then work directly with the pharmaceutical companies or with the research sites. Mm-hmm. So fast forward until about 2010, and at that point, the owners of the agency decided that they were ready to move on into different ventures, and their business model was flawed a bit. And we were still, again, behind the scenes, but they were looking to sell. Okay. And so we formally acquired Praxis in 2010, moved headquarters from Nashville, Tennessee, here to Buffalo, New York, and had to build out the project management department, a strategy department, and we retained the business development team that had been working on the Praxis business. So we did keep some of the key employees, and we fixed some of the business model issues, and we got lucky out of the gate with a few pieces of really great business, a few clinical trials, and the rest is sort of history. So Praxis now is a wholly owned subsidiary of Crowley Webb, and it's really the agency within the agency. Mm-hmm. So we still have those dedicated departments, project management, strategy, and business development, but otherwise it's shared services with media, creative, production, analytics. That's been a real growth area for us. So it's been a good ride.
Yeah. And do you market them separately? Do you go in as Crowley Webb and say, oh, by the way, we have Praxis, or go in as Praxis and say, we're backed by Crowley Webb? How does that work?
Yeah, so Praxis, because it's specialty, so we really have a single focus. We recruit patients to participate in clinical trials. So the Crowley Webb name doesn't really carry a whole lot of weight with that. Praxis is more well-known in the industry. And in fact, the patient recruitment aspect of the industry being its own discipline is fairly young. So the fact that we've been in business for 20 years, we're one of the legacy providers of patient recruitment services. So we enter the B2B market in pharma as Praxis. Mm-hmm. But what Praxis helps Crowley Webb do is really, again, bolster our offerings and really allowed us to carve out a healthcare division within Crowley Webb that we can then use when we are pitching other healthcare clients to be able to talk about the work that we've done in patient recruitment. And it's really no different than M&T Bank, which is a client where we might recruit someone to open a checking account. We're just recruiting somebody who has an ailment or a condition, or in some cases are healthy volunteers, like was the case with the COVID vaccine trials, and trying to recruit someone to consider participation. So it's same integrated marketing campaigns. It's just very, very niche, very targeted within the patient recruitment space.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Because you hear a lot about, and I've talked to a lot of other people about industry-specific divisions of agencies and whether that helps or hurts sometimes. And you did that, but with a very different approach because you were already buying a startup and working with that startup.
Well, and I think it goes to show, we have this debate a lot internally. We consider ourselves a full-service communications agency, which there are probably thousands of full-service communications agencies out there around the country. And so why would someone pick Crowley Webb? Why would someone pick Buffalo, New York, unless there's a relationship or unless, again, you saw an ad that won an award, that you may want to consider them. Whereas with Praxis, because we specialize in one thing, it doesn't matter if we're working with anyone around the world. They don't care that we're in Buffalo, New York. It doesn't matter. We have a niche offering that they're looking for. So it really makes you think of that whole generalist versus specialist approach. And from a new business standpoint, it certainly is a lot easier to sell a specialty than it is to sell something that's, more of a generalist. And that's why I think so many agencies rely on their network and rely on their reputation and follow clients where they go. And that seems to open up a lot of doors.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and with that niche specialty, you're not worried about competition among your clients, right?
No,
That doesn't
it really doesn't. So we try and practice. So we call ourselves TA agnostic. We're therapeutic area agnostic. It doesn't matter which disease or condition or state that we're working in. I think where we do sometimes practice exclusivity is in the rare disease space. So we wouldn't recruit 2 rare disease trials going on at the same time, trying to get the same people, because then we're really competing against ourselves. But if you've got a diabetes trial and another diabetes trial, it's really, you try and cast the widest net you can to fill the top of the funnel with patients. And that's where we come into play. And then it's up to the research sites to finish the enrollment for that particular patient.
Okay. And are the research sites all over, or are they here as well?
Well, there are some in Buffalo. So we have had research sites locally, but they probably didn't even know that we were in their backyard here. Most of the work we do is national and then international as well. And that has its own unique set of challenges because the patient recruitment space is very, very heavily regulated. Because we're in clinical research and things haven't been FDA approved yet, you have to go through quite a series of regulatory approvals and processes. And so that's done either at a local level or a regional or even sometimes national level here in country. But each global country also has their own set of rules and regulations that you have to learn and abide by. It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all approach. Sometimes we can only do translated materials, educational type of materials. And we also will do the transcreation process to make sure that they're culturally appropriate in that given country. But the level of advertising, for example, that you're able to do for clinical research varies greatly country to country. And I'm always astonished that Google, which is global company, global platform, there's only 20 countries where Google will allow clinical trial advertising. So it's still very fresh, very new. COVID helped with the vaccine trials, and we were lucky enough to work with Moderna on their vaccine trial. And so, but it's also different when you're recruiting a healthy volunteer versus someone who has an ailment or a condition.
Yeah, we found you can't target people based on their condition, right? With paid ads most of the time.
Well, you had an easier time about a month ago. Facebook just changed all their rules, which which didn't help because you did have a medical target that you could layer on with some demo and geo targeting, but they've since changed that. So you have to get creative, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting. So I guess you talked a little bit about it, how it fits in the agency structure. Does the departments that share services with Praxis, is that hard? Do they treat them like a client, or is it like, how do you manage that structurally?
Yeah, so it's always interesting, and we've had to do a lot of training and a lot of education, especially for new people as we've been growing. And we say that of the 130 people in the agency, the only people who don't work on Praxis are really the Crowley Webb account teams. Everybody else touches Praxis in some way, shape, or form. So we definitely don't treat them like a client, though we have to treat ourselves like a client. So we're doing our website over, for example, right now, and that always gets pushed to the back burner, it seems.
Same.
But we do try and make sure that each campaign, each study that we're recruiting for, we do set it up as its own client so that it has its own set of deadlines, own set of budgets, own sets of time codes, all of those types of fun things that come with agency work. So it's fast and furious. I mean, it comes through quick, and each campaign it's again a fully integrated marketing campaign. So there's lots of different pieces and parts. And all of the different departments really do have to band together and work together to pull it off and make it happen.
Yeah, I'm sure. So there's a few other initiatives that you've done in the past couple of years that I'd love for you to talk about.
Sure.
The first being Sample. I'm on your sample list. I hope I'm allowed to be, since I work for an agency.
No, yeah, absolutely.
But can you talk a little bit about Sample and what you're doing there?
Yeah. So I would say, and I'm going to take a step back, and then I promise I'll get there. So Crowley Webb has long been known as sort of a creative shop and really high quality production of creative work that comes out of the agency. And with the Praxis acquisition, data and science became really, really critical to our success. Pharmaceutical and biotech companies care about moving the needle and care about the data behind the success of a campaign. So we started growing out our analytics team. And that was unusual for an advertising agency to have data analysts on staff. But once we saw the value that those individuals could add, we've actually now grown to be an 11-person analytics department.
Oh, wow.
And we've crossed the analytics hurdle into, I think, almost all of our clients in some way, shape, or form will have analytics work tied to them somehow. So in working with the analytics team, there's a lot of qualitative research that can happen as well as quantitative research that can happen. And Sample was born from our VP of Analytics, who felt the need to want to create a consumer panel that we could easily tap into, whether it was for some quick down and dirty research for ourselves or for our clients, to be able to, do some sort of survey work, or if we needed to pressure test messaging or do a concept review or whatever it might be. It seemed like a great alternative to having to go out and source a panel, which can take time, which can get expensive. And we thought, if we can build it and build it around the footprint of our clients, then we could start tapping into it more regularly, again, for our own benefit, but also for our clients' benefit. And we had some clients who were asking for it, who said, if you build it, we will come. And knock on wood, they've come to be able to sample it and use it. So we're really excited. That launched formally in Q4 of last year. So it's been a large initiative, and it also it's really a lesson in database building and management and creating that and setting that up and being able to compete with the Qualtrics of the world and others, and on a much smaller, less robust scale. But it's something that we hope to continue to invest in and grow and be able to offer. It's a tool, again, mainly for our clients' use.
Yeah, I think it's really cool because you see a lot of those ads, or when you get an email and it'll say, would you like to sign up to take surveys for $5 a pop, or something like that. It always seems really spammy. But I signed up when you shared it on your LinkedIn. I was like, I'll be part of their sample panel. And I get the emails and they don't seem spammy at all.
Yeah.
And I get my points from answering surveys. So it seems like you're already putting it to good use.
We are. And you know what? It actually hooked us a piece of new business recently. So we were able to kind of cross-sell it and utilize it to do a survey about seasonal driving. So, really kind of cool.
Yeah, which right now would be really helpful because people drive so differently now than they did 2 years ago.
Right.
So how you might have made assumptions a few years ago, it's very different.
Right.
So I can see that being a great tool for you. Crowley Webb has always been known for big ideas, big creative ideas. And to have that research to drive it and to drive the background is probably just a really great tool for clients too, to sell in an idea. This is what we saw in the research.
Well, and what client doesn't want to hear that something's backed by research or that we're going to be able to prove and now be able to put metrics against its success?
Exactly.
I think you win when you can do that, because it used to just be, let's throw this great idea against the wall and see if it sticks.
Yeah.
And was it successful? I don't know, but it looked cool.
We liked it.
Now you can prove that something actually works.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, so how else are you promoting Sample? How are you gaining followers and panelists?
So it started a lot by word of mouth. And then we had to treat ourselves like a client and think about what's the situation, what's the objective, what are we trying to do? So we did do a paid campaign as well. And so we launched the paid campaign because the other part of it is that we wanted to make sure that we had enough diversity represented within the panel itself, and age, gender, socioeconomic status, race, level of ability. I mean, there were so many different things that we needed to consider.
Mm-hmm.
And so we decided to kind of run a series of mini campaigns to try and recruit people into the panel as well. And then once you have people in, you need to retain them. And so even running little pulse surveys just for our own data and to be able to use ourselves to keep people active, it was an investment that we, the agency, had to make, not only in building it, but in cultivating and helping to grow the panel.
Yeah.
And then before we could really put it to good use for our clients.
That makes sense. And are you planning to let other agencies hire you to do that?
I don't know.
If they want to?
Maybe.
I mean, it'd
We'll
be a good
see.
offering. A lot of agencies can't do that on their own, or maybe don't have connections to a resource that can do it. It'd be a nice thing to see if other agencies hire you for it.
We tend to play really nice in the sandbox, so I wouldn't say no to that. That's for sure.
Cool. So another initiative that I saw you launch throughout the pandemic, you guys were just really busy doing a lot of things, was the Chroma Initiative. And I thought this was really awesome, especially, timely wise.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So Chroma resulted really following the George Floyd's murder and the Black Lives Matter movement. And I think, like the rest of the world, we were shaken to the core by everything that was happening. And we didn't want to be just an agency that stood by and did nothing. And we didn't want to just check a box and put a black square up on, for Black Lives Matter on a Tuesday where everyone else was doing it. We needed to do something more. Yet we struggled with what to do and what felt appropriate. And the industry, the advertising industry in general, tends to not be very diverse. And we had to remember that and look at ourselves and think, what could we do to give back and to try and make a difference? And so we have a DEI committee that was actually formed long before the events in the summer of 20. I think it was 20.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, it seems days and years don't matter anymore.
Yeah.
I don't feel.
It could have been a month ago or 10 years
could
ago.
have been.
I'm not sure.
It could have been. So we asked that committee to think about things that we could do to give back. And Crowley Webb has always had a commitment to this community and a long-standing reputation for giving back to the community. So we decided to create Chroma. And Chroma is an initiative to give back to minority-owned businesses in Western New York. And it's an application process But the idea being that every quarter we will pick an organization that needs support running the full suite of services that we offer. It could be a logo that needs to be developed. It could be research that needs to be done. It could be design work. It could be strategy work. I mean, it could be any number of things. But that we as a committee will select the organization that we, feel we can help the most and that needs our help the most. And so we launched that last year, and we've already had 4 partners. And we started with Kari's Cafe on the west side, and we did PR work for them to help launch their grand opening, as well as take a look at some of their menu work that needed to be done. And we helped another daycare center with a new logo that they needed. We're working on a program right now that is Western New York Mobile Ops. And we're actually going to take the entire agency through Narcan training as a result of that program. And because they need to do some video work on how to administer Narcan. So we thought, let's give back to our own people, but let's also then do some video work while we're at it and be able to create little snippets and little videos for them. So it's really, really interesting. I think it's really rewarding for our employees to get to empower them to be able to kind of help lead and support these efforts and these initiatives, because it's very much a grassroots within the agency approach. It's not a top-down initiative at all. And we're empowering the employees to get involved, and anyone can sort of help out on any given project that we might have going on. I will say that from a management standpoint, we have overinvested in every single initiative that we've started, and it feels really good to be able to do that. But I mean, there's so many worthy causes and organizations out there. So we're just getting ready to open up the application process again to select our next partner.
That's awesome. That's so much fun. I know everyone always loves working on pro bono projects at the agency because you get to meet really appreciative people and experience something different that you never had experience with before, as opposed to, I'm sure, working in banking and healthcare. As exciting and as great as those clients are, it's probably a lot more fun when you get to do something a little bit different.
And I think our clients in those industries love seeing that we're also doing this work. And it feels good to give back. And it's always been in our DNA, and to be able to put it to really good use, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's great. I see a lot about it on your website, on your socials, and all of that, and I think it's been really good. So
great. Well, thank you.
Great job.
Thanks.
So switching gears a little bit, just future state. What are your biggest challenges right now as an agency? What are you seeing in March of 2022?
Recruitment. Recruitment and retention. And the Great Resignation is real, and it's legit. And I feel like so many agencies, especially locally in Western New York, didn't know what to expect in the pandemic. And we certainly did not expect to grow to the degree that we did. When we left in March of 20, we had 83 employees, and we're now up to 130.
Wow.
And there's been turnover in there. So we've had to, add above and beyond that. And the agencies aren't poaching from each other. It's you're hiring different kind of talent and teaching them and finding individuals who fit culturally and who want to work. We say we'll train you. We'll teach you whatever you need to know about the industry. We're unfortunately, although I totally get it, we're losing staff to big cities who have agencies that are looking in other markets and allowing people to stay remote permanently and paying double the salaries. And we just can't compete. So you have to take a good hard look at your culture. What does that mean? What does that mean to people who aren't coming into the office every day? Your benefits. I feel like we've had to get where we have to be completely open to new ideas when it comes to benefits and how we're packaging and how we're promoting those things, because it's competitive out there. And like it or not, it's an employee's market. And so we've just had to think long and hard about all of those things. We did hire a full-time HR person, and
Okay.
that has been, I mean, she's like employee of the century for everything that she has dealt with. She's been incredible.
Mhm.
So
Did you not before this?
we had outsourced HR prior
okay.
to, and we weren't really big enough to need it. It was being run by our CFO and it just an internal kind of department. But now we have a dedicated HR person and are about to have a job posting for an assistant in that role. So the managing the growth is certainly a challenge, and yet trying to keep everything that's so incredible about the agency intact while thinking about how big do we want to get and what does that look like. And even things like the space challenges of coming back to the office. We, again, left at 83, coming back at 130. Where are you going to put everybody? And how are you going to maintain social distancing? And are we going to double, triple people up in spaces? And are they going to be comfortable sharing? So those were challenges, but we did let the employees have a voice the entire time and be able to weigh in on that and participate in kind of smaller committees and in determining how best to return. We basically said, if you're going to be in the office 4 days a week or more, you can retain your private space that you had. But if it's going to be less than that, you may be sharing, but you'll still at least have a place to come to every day. We quickly ruled out the idea of hoteling, where you just kind of come in and grab a desk. Our employees weren't keen on that.
Yeah, that seems tough. It seems tough to have that culture and feel like you're really part of it when you're just coming in and putting your bag in a locker and having a space that somebody else used yesterday.
So we took our travel and entertainment budget that we weren't using and put that towards office renovations. So we renovated the space and gave people a kind of fresh new place to come back to. And so that's been, again, something wasn't expecting to have to deal with, but I'm proud of the way that we did handle it. I will say, too, a shout out to AAF Buffalo, because their leadership recognized a need to sort of see what was happening across the industry. So we actually have a roundtable of leadership that was created during the pandemic that has representatives from various agencies participating. And we've talked about all sorts of different things. And it's been really nice to have everyone working together and sharing kind of their ideas and things that they're doing, so that we just have a sense of, at least industry-wide, locally, what the kind of norms are now.
And how the hiring is going and all of those things.
Yep.
I'm sure that's
and
helpful.
Some sharing of candidates, I will say. If we had somebody who came across our desk and we weren't looking to hire that particular position, but we knew our friends at the Martin Group were, pass over that resume and say, here's one you may want to take a look at.
That's nice. That's nice. I don't feel like that had ever happened
in
the agency world here in Buffalo prior to 2020.
No, not as much.
For sure. Well, what do you see besides the recruitment? What do you see impacting the business the most in the next few years?
I think that the actual business side of it, I think there's now an expectation that things are done just differently. And for example, I don't know that we'll be traveling nearly as much as we used to. I think people value their time so much more. And if we can accomplish something on a Zoom call, why not do it rather than travel to a central location and have to then entertain and stay over and deal with airlines and whatever else it might be. I don't see as much of that. Yet I do see the conference industry making a comeback, because I still feel like people want to get away.
Yeah.
It's just, I may not want to get away every day, every week. So I think that that'll certainly change. And then the work, I think there's, industries that maybe didn't thrive before are now thriving as a result. And how do you continue that while also being realistic about how long can some of these areas last? For example, we've got a few clients who are in the DIY space, And the pandemic presented tons of opportunity for DIY.
Mm-hmm.
So now you have this engaged audience that you've never had before that are going to start getting back to their normal,
Mm-hmm.
in air quotes. Are they going to forget about that? Will that fad kind of have passed? And now how do you recover from something like that? Yet you still have this group to stay engaged with. I think the world of influencer marketing is only continuing to grow, and how influencer crosses over with content strategy, that crosses over with video, that crosses over. I mean, the agencies are more integrated than they ever have been.
Mm-hmm.
The departments are working so much closer together because they have to. And it's been great to see, because I think we used to be siloed a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And now it seems like, we left that at the door, literally, and are just figuring out new and different ways to work together to be a little bit more nimble, to be a little bit more agile, and see kind of what successes we can have. We were chatting recently that we tend to try and create the Mona Lisa every single time that we do anything. And it's a tragic flaw of Crowley Webb's, yet some would argue it's one of our greatest, strengths. So not everything needs to be the Mona Lisa. Doesn't mean it doesn't still have to be good. Doesn't have to be great.
Mm-hmm.
But there could be ways to accomplish things on a different level, on a different scale.
Right. Don't let perfection get in the way of progress.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, great. Well, okay. What would you tell somebody that is new in marketing and advertising, straight out of college or still in college? What would you tell them when they're starting out? What advice would you give yourself back then?
Don't be afraid to work hard. Don't be afraid to ask a lot of questions. Don't be afraid to just throw yourself in. I think so often now people are waiting to be told what to do, and waiting for the pat on the back or waiting for something, when I feel like if you just have drive and ambition and are willing to just soak it all in and have that experience, you're going to be successful.
Yeah.
You're going to figure it out. It's also okay not to know what you want to do. And I think one of the things that we've been very fortunate to be able to do for individuals is create paths within the agency that are not where you necessarily came in the door. There was in the book Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg, she talks about how career paths are no longer a ladder, they're a jungle gym, and you climb around.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really, really true. And so just don't get your foot in the door. That's really critical. And once you get your foot in the door, which isn't that hard to do right now, it used to be a lot harder. But once you're in, take advantage of it. Make yourself known.
Mm-hmm.
And again, volunteer, get involved, look for ways to make a difference. And it's especially now in this hybrid world, you have to stand out a little bit more. You have to show up. And if you do, you should be rewarded for it.
Yeah. If you have things that you want to work on and you're not there yet, doing an amazing job at the things that you're on will get you those opportunities.
And being honest about it.
Mm-hmm.
I'd really like to learn more about community management on social channels. Okay, great. Let's make it happen. But I can't read your mind and know that that's what you want if we're not talking about it. And I think that goes to the whole communication loop. And we're actually about to blow up our entire performance evaluation process because I feel like there needs to be more constant communication, feedback, check-ins, all of those things. And it can't just be a supervisor to employee thing anymore. There's so many different people that we're collaborating with that we need to allow them to have the opportunity to weigh in, to check in, and to provide continuous feedback, because it's really the only way that people are going to continue to grow and get better.
Mm-hmm. We did that over the last 2 years. We've gone to monthly and bi-monthly growth meetings, we call them, instead of performance check-ins, where it's a time to give feedback from whoever's working with you, but also a time for that person to say, I've really thought about it. My goals are changing in this way, or I really want to get to this level, or, whatever they're thinking about, and making sure that we're all aligned and we can all work towards that together. And so sometimes, like I said, it's hard to speak up. It's hard to say, I want to learn about this, or I want to do something different. And so this gives everyone that platform or that time each month to be able to talk about their own goals.
That's so smart. And I think that also lets you know and kind of get a pulse check on where that employee is.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want to be surprised if they were to put their resignation in, like, what? I didn't even know.
Right.
There should never be surprises. And if there are, then somebody's not doing as good of a job as they could be doing.
Right.
We started an initiative years ago called Speakeasies, Crowley Webb Speakeasies. And it's an opportunity for employees across different departments to get together, and we have a topic each month that you get put into groups. We try and keep the groups the same for a couple of months at least, so that you build some trust and camaraderie within your group. But it might be topics like how to have a voice in a room with big personalities, or goal planning for the year, how to talk to my boss about asking for a raise, things that you think about, but you don't ever really want to ask others about, yet you realize quickly that everybody's thinking that same exact thing. And so those groups have been really, really effective at also then just allowing you to try and figure out, okay, that person has similar outlooks to me. Maybe I should kind of get to know them a little bit better. We're also trying to constantly find those ways to create cross-department collaboration and give people a chance to get just to know each other better.
That's really smart. I like that idea a lot. The Speakeasies.
Yeah, they've been good.
Yeah.
We also launched one more, Crowley Connections.
You just have all of these
we have all these great
things.
ideas, right? Well, that's when you're marketing, you have to do that.
Yeah.
Crowley Connections it's opt-in, completely opt-in, but you get paired up every other month with another employee. It could be somebody that you've worked with for 20 years and you're already best pals, or it could be somebody brand new, but it's a completely random. And the goal is just to get together with that person and go out for lunch or grab a cup of coffee or set up a Zoom call, whatever you feel comfortable doing. Some people have gone and taken a walk around Delaware Park or gone out for a beer, whatever makes the most sense. But it's really been a good way to get to know each other again on a different level. My last Crowley connection, actually, he and I got talking about our love of skiing together. And so we planned a Crowley Webb ski night after that.
Oh, nice.
And it was just really fun.
That's so nice. I love that. Get out of your comfort zone, become friends with somebody that you didn't really know before. Maybe.
Right.
That's cool. Great. Well, okay, quick lightning round before we close out.
Let's do it.
Favorite campaign you've worked on?
Oh, Moderna's COVID campaign. So it's by far been the most professionally rewarding for me. My client was at a different pharmaceutical company, and she left and she called me and said, I'm leaving. I'm going to be someplace new on June 1st. I'm going to call you then because I need you to help. And she said, we have an opportunity to change the world. And I had no idea what she was talking about. I didn't even know there was a company called Moderna out there, and they were small. And so sure enough, on June 1st, she called me and said, we think we have the vaccine and we need your help. And what normally takes 3 to 4 months for startup, we did in about 3 weeks. And we pushed that campaign through. And it was Operation Warp Speed was behind it as well. But that entire campaign was just incredible to stand up, and then to see that they successfully recruited their 30,000 volunteers that they needed, that we had 32% represent minority populations, and then to be able to see it come to fruition. And, I'm triple vaxxed with Moderna, so I feel really good about it.
And to be here, we can be here.
Yes,
now.
we can be here
a year and a half
together.
Later, we're here together recording this podcast.
That's been by far the most professionally rewarding campaign I've worked on.
That is really cool. How exciting. What's your favorite social media platform?
I have to go Instagram these days. It used to be Facebook, and then Facebook just got a little bit too
political.
Sure.
Whiny?
Yeah,
Complaining?
all of the above. And I realized that what I really want to see are, photos and videos of the people that I care about. And so Instagram became that great platform. Plus, I find it's easier to creep on celebrities and people that I don't want to admit that I follow that I do.
I agree. I like that. Worst pitch experience.
Oh gosh, there have been a lot. I'll give you 2 examples. I can't believe I'm going to say this one out loud, but it's hilarious. So I was pitching with our current CEO and former creative director down in Philadelphia. And our current CEO is just a funny guy and a little bit socially awkward. And he would be okay with me saying that. And creative director's name was Dave. My name's obviously Tricia. And he's getting real excited when he's introducing us in the meeting. And he said, "I'd like you to meet Big D and Teabag."
Oh my gosh, amazing.
I looked at him like, "What did you just say?" And he clearly had no idea that it had an entirely different definition that you might find in Urban Dictionary.
Yeah.
And so he just kept throughout the meeting saying teabag. And I was absolutely horrified. And after the meeting, we told him what it meant. So,
did you get the business?
No, we sure didn't. Nope. So that was horrifying. And then most recently, we were pitching the Blue Cross Blue Shield business of Western New York, and it was during the pandemic, and it was just like early 2020 pandemic. And we had made it to the finals, and we had to present to the executive leadership team. And we had tested all the technology. Everybody had done everything we possibly could. I was running the deck off of my computer at home because everybody at that point was home, and let's say it was a 50 slide deck. We were slide 2 and my computer freezes.
Oh.
And all I keep hearing is, "Tricia, your computer's frozen. Tricia, we can't see it. Tricia, it's frozen. Tricia," and I get phone calls, texts, everything. And I'm like, people, I know. I'm well aware of this, right? And it was just one of those moments where
your heart stops.
It was the worst. But thankfully, our soon-to-be client at the time was our guardian angel, and she suggested that everybody leave for 10 minutes and come back and give us a chance to reset and restart. But I thought for sure we were going to lose the business over these technology challenges.
Right. It's hard. We're a digital agency, and you get into a Zoom and you get stuck, or your power goes out or something like that. And you're like, please don't judge us. We work in the internet all day. I promise we know how to use these tools.
Yeah. But
terrifying.
Thankfully we came back and, crushed it. So
that was a huge win.
It was a great
Good
win.
for you guys.
Great
Congratulations.
Win. Thanks.
So, okay, last one in the lightning round. What is your favorite thing to listen to while you're working?
I change it up. At home, I have Sonos, and I listen around the house to different music, and I'll usually just put on some sort of a mix. But at the office, I've been listening to a lot of Brandi Carlile lately.
Okay.
And that seems to be kind of good groove music to go about my day. I do need to have noise, though. I need to have some sort of music.
Yeah. You don't listen to podcasts while you're working?
I don't.
I can't. I can only listen to them when I'm driving. Otherwise, I don't pay attention to them at all.
I wish I could. And even though I know it's not a podcast, but I'm a huge Howard Stern fan,
Mm-hmm.
and I love his interviews. And I find that if I try and listen to one of his interviews and I'm working, I just zone out of work and just listen. So I'd rather go for a drive and listen if that's the case.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, this was so much fun. I'm so glad that you came on the show. Where can our listeners find you, find more content about Crowley Webb? Where can they follow you?
Well, our website's crowleywebb.com. And if you want to learn more about Praxis, it's gopraxis.com. I'm active on LinkedIn, and you can also email me at tricia.barrett@crowleywebb.com.
Well, thank you so much.
Thanks, Jill.
Great. Welcome. So starting this month, we're going to do a new segment where we tell stories from real people telling us their agency horror stories, if you will, or other stories. And we want to hear from our listeners and anyone else that wants to submit a story. I got this idea from the issue that happened on Twitter with the CEO of Coinbase, Brian Armstrong. So if you haven't heard about it, after their Super Bowl ad this year, he tweeted out a series of tweets about how they came up with that ad. People were asking for specifics. And one of his tweets said, initially an outside agency pitched us a bunch of standard Super Bowl ad ideas. I didn't like any of them. Their standard Super Bowl ads tend to be gimmicky, celebrity cameo driven, going for a laugh, etc. Then he said, so we went back and brainstormed, came up with a bunch of wild ideas. Some of these we'll do down the road, but didn't have enough time to produce. So he basically said we did not use an agency for any of this work. And Kristen Cavallo, the Martin Agency CEO, wrote back to that tweet to make sure that they knew that their team had originally pitched this idea. And she actually came with a very specific receipt on this tweet. It was actually inspired by presentations our agency showed your team on 8/18, pages 19 to 24, and 10/7, pages 11 to 18, with ad concepts for the Super Bowl with floating QR codes on a blank screen. And when he came back a day later to acknowledge that maybe they did have a little help in the creative space, he had said in his tweet, although we didn't work with a traditional ad agency, I'd be remiss not to mention the creative firm we work with who actually created the ad, commissioned the song, got the clearances, etc., etc. Honestly, felt like we were all one team, so I didn't fully realize it. Thank you. Which is crazy because he didn't actually mention them and he didn't call them out by name. So he did not give any agency credit and in fact just went on to say that they did it themselves. So that was one of those times that as an agency person, you feel like, man, the client really did us dirty. And that gave me the idea for this because I know we all have a ton of stories like that. So I asked around the agency and I put a question up on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear everyone's stories of this and we'll tell one each month or maybe a couple. But we had from one of our employees, she gave us an example of a time when she worked for a different agency and they kept losing people. And so instead of hiring more people, her department, who only had 3 people in it at the time, just kept getting more work dumped on them. And they were working through their lunches. They were there early, working late, working so many overtime hours. And at the time, they were hourly employees. And by law, were supposed to be paid more. And so she went to their manager and said, we're working all of these hours. How can we relieve some of this work? Can we get more help in this department? Can we get paid for this overtime? And her manager kept just letting them go around in circles. She gave them a tracker to fill out to say what they had done that day and to list all of their time on. And she told them she was fighting for them. She was going to her boss and asking for overtime, asking for more people. And she just kept having them jump through hoops for this. So finally, our employee went to her boss's boss and said, I really just want to advocate for my team that this is going on. And he had no idea that any of it was happening. The manager had never gone to him, never asked for more people, never submitted their time or their overtime for more pay. And so honestly, the manager was just lying about all of it and just creating this issue. And so our current employee at the time, that employee, her and her other 2 coworkers all quit in the same week. And so they had nobody left on that team, which is never a good thing. But I thought that was a really interesting way to go about it for that manager to just lie to everybody about everything. But obviously, this is a learning point to help advocate for your team and to manage your teams better so that they don't all quit on the same day. So that was an interesting agency employee point of view. But I'd love to hear from all of our listeners, your horror stories, whether they're with a client, with your team, as a client of an agency, a time that you hired somebody and hated the experience. We'd love to hear it all. So follow us on Twitter at The Agency Scoop, or find me on LinkedIn at The Agency Scoop. I'd love to hear all of your stories. Thanks for joining us for this episode of The Agency Scoop. If you liked what you heard, you can subscribe so you don't miss a show. You can also find us on the Cypress North YouTube channel or follow The Agency Scoop on Twitter and LinkedIn. I'd love to hear your ideas for future topics. See you next time on The Agency Scoop.